Hello all, and welcome to today's review, which I am calling the Sunburn Move Review. Because I'm moving, and because I was moving today, I am really unbelievably sunburned. I'm a night worker, so I don't usually spend much time in the day anymore. So you can see one side of me is a lot darker than the other, even in this crappy camera. I was just driving back and forth and the sun shines on one side. So, what are we reviewing today? Aunt Sally by Lagunitas. This is an American wild ale. Well, it's classified as an American wild ale, but I would think it would be more like an American sour because, well, we'll see. It's Lagunitas. It's kind of on like a whole bunch of. It's kind of outside of an easily classifiable, style classification. So. Label says here, a unique dry-hopped, sweet tart sour mash ale. So this uses lactobacilli, obviously sour. It's Lagunitas, so obviously going to be hopped too. So let's read the label, shall we? Our Aunt Sally is a tart, dry-hopped ale brewed in a bizarre old-world tradition. We brewed this in honor of the real Aunt Sally. You know who you are, and you know why. Enough said for now. Okay. This is 5.7 ABV, which is right around where a American sour should be, or American wild ale should be. So let's pour this out. I'm going to be using the Belgian glass because I want to keep those nice little odors in there. Head's going to dissipate fairly quickly, so I'm going to go to that first. Fizzy white head, quickly dissipating. First off, you get that trademark Lagunitas hop smell in the head here. And what is that trademark Lagunitas hop smell? Very dank. There's also a tartness in there. Almost like sweet tarts, I must say. You know the candy, sweet tarts. Kind of smells like crushed sweet tarts. Underneath that is sort of a mineral backbone. Not really smelling much in the way of malts, but, you know, with these sours you don't really smell malts sometimes. Moderately carbonated. Sort of a dark, I would definitely say dark yellow to almost light orange coloration. There is a lot going on here in the taste. First off, let's start with the finish. There's three things going on in the finish here. There is this sort of residual tartness. There is the hopping, so there's some bitterness and some hop dimensionality there, mostly dank. And finally, there is a funkiness, and the funkiness is what lasts the longest, oddly enough. You would think the sourness and the hopping would last, but it's actually the sort of Brett funk that's sort of staying there and hanging around on the tongue. In the front, some mild, definitely get mild funkiness, but what hits you is the intense tartness. The intense tartness doesn't hang around, peaks quickly, and then it kind of dissipates. It's very subtle in the finish. Probably the most subtle of the three flavors in the finish, and it dissipates the quickest. It's refreshing for a 5.7 especially. It feels a lot lighter, and that's probably because of the high acidity. It's almost astringent in the mouth, which is probably why it tastes light-bodied and refreshing. There's only a little bit of fruit that's kind of coming towards the end of the mids and the beginning of the finish there, and it's just a flash and it's gone. Not really, even though it says sweet on the label, not really sweet at all. It's not completely dry. In order to balance the incredibly high acidity of this, there's obviously some sugar in there. But because of the acidity and because of the hopping, you don't really notice it all that well. It's just kind of there. You sort of realize it's there to balance out the bite of that, acidic tang, which is kind of citric, I would say, in this case. Well, very citric. What's fun is sussing out that sweetness and sussing out those fruit notes. They're there. That fruit note is there. That sweetness is there underneath the tartness, underneath the funk, underneath the hopping. And in fact, I could probably classify the hopping in this too as one of the more subtle notes. It's not something that immediately comes to mind when you're drinking it, but it's definitely there and making itself known. You can kind of go and dig around and, while you're drinking it, sort of suss it out on your palate there. This is a very interesting beer. It's my first wild ale. Like I said, that's why I'm kind of hesitant to go and say, oh, it's actually an American sour, because I don't really know wild ales all that well. I have read that they're not, that technically are not, while they're often sour, they're not very sour, and this is definitely tart. The tart definitely is more of a feature than the funk is. And what's the funk like? Well, it's kind of hard for me to go and say, and I should go and kind of discern what I mean by funk, because wheat funk is slightly different from sour funk, which is slightly different from, Belgian yeast funkiness. And what is that? It's hard to say. It's hard to kind of quantify in words without using adjectives that make it sound bad. In this case, this kind of funk tastes a little bit musty, but in a pleasant manner. The mustiness of an old book versus the mustiness of laundry that's been sitting in your closet for a month. There's a difference there. Both are musty. One's a pleasant musty, one's an unpleasant musty. This one definitely goes towards a pleasant sort of mustiness. And as it warms up, definitely funk is kind of increasing, and the hops are kind of increasing too. Sour is still the main point, but it is shifting in dimensionality a little bit. All in all, sweetness is kind of coming out a little bit more too. All in all, I would say that this is a fairly fascinating beverage here. Honestly, if you've never had a sour before, I wouldn't go and start on this. I would definitely go and try like Otravez or something that's a little bit, well, a lot less tart and funky, and kind of work your way up to something like this, which is sort of challenging the taste buds in what a person what a person defines beer as. I tried to introduce some of my relatives to sour beer via Otravez, and they're not macro brew drinkers. They enjoy IPAs, they enjoy Belgian style ales. They did not enjoy sours. It was drain pours for them. In the words of my sister, beer isn't supposed to be sour. That said, I like sours. I really like sours. Even though there's not much head on this, there's still a very You know, there's still a very detectable bouquet there. And it's kind of changed a little bit. It definitely has, the hop smell is kind of gone, because I'm guessing that's kind of trapped in the head. It's sort of effervescent, and the actual liquid itself kind of smells of sweet tarts, so it's really interesting. Also, too, this goes down really easy. You could really put a few of these back if you're like me and into sours. If you do put a few of these back, make sure you have something in the stomach, because this definitely tastes like it would give you some digestive problems if you had a few on an empty stomach. You know, acid reflux. So I've talked for nearly 11 minutes, and that's because, you know, with this beer, I love these long reviews I kind of extend on, because there's just so much to talk about. I could talk about this a little bit more, but I'm probably starting to repeat myself at this point. So, Aunt Sally by Lagunitas. I'm not really sure if this is, one of those ones that only come out during the season. Definitely, it's a summer beer. And, you know, if you do find it, definitely give it a shot. It's a wonderful, interesting beer if you're into sours. Again, let me qualify that. If you hadn't had a sour before, this is not one to go and start on. It's definitely a kick in the tongue. If you do love sours like me, it's a really fascinating trip in a direction that that I have not really gone before, which is a sort of American-style hopped sour. So, folks, that's your beer review for tonight. Definitely give this one a shot. Cheers.